everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another Walking Dead video. So in this one here, I wanted to talk about a bunch of stuff here. I wanted to talk about episode 5 and get into some of Gimple's comments regarding episode 5, but I also really wanted to talk about not the chances of a season 2 happening for this show, but I really wanted to get into just how quickly things are going to change here, because after we watch episode 5 this Sunday, which is 4 days away from now, we only got one more episode left, right? And so all of next week, the talk is all going to be, is this it? Is this the end of Rick and Michonne? And as of now, in terms of the promotion and all that for this show, there is no talk of that. There's really nothing in terms of this is the end of Rick and Michonne. And so obviously, it's going to be a really, really intense week because a lot of people are going to be wanting a season 2. And obviously going into that very last episode, people are going to be like, is this the end? Is this actually really going to be the end of Rick and Michonne? And if it is the end, if it actually ends in a way where it's that is actually done and whatever, I think people are going to be very, very disappointed. And again, I kind of wanted to focus on that aspect to it because in the next week or so, or not even the next week, in 4 days from now, once we're in that place where we've watched episode 5, it's going to be all about this very last episode and where do they go now, right? So I want to talk about Gimple's comments regarding episode 5 and 6 because he did actually sort of tease that. And just get into the whole, what this final part of this story of, I guess, this season or series or whatever it's going to be. So definitely make sure to be a subscriber if you do want to get all my Walking Dead content like this. The plan for the next, the next 2 or 3 weeks anyways is really going to be obviously covering the ones who live a lot. I will be talking about the show quite a bit. I will be working on a review for X-Men 97 and depending on how people sort of feel about that, and I don't know, I might just cover the show just sort of in general. There's a lot of shows that I do want to cover this year and I really want to make sure that I do cover, like House of Dragon. There's a few other shows as well. I'm trying to think of the other ones, but there's a few other shows as well, but I do want to cover them a lot because the last couple of years I haven't really been able to focus on certain things because I have 3 kids, and so it's kind of rough having to, and it's just me. I have to raise them and there's just a lot of life stuff and all of that, you know what I mean? There's a lot. And again, a lot of stuff happened in the last year or two that really, it made me not be able to really cover any other shows because there was just a lot of I didn't really have a lot of time. That really is what it comes down to, is I didn't really have a lot of time. But lately, this year specifically, I've been watching more and more shows, and so I want to get back into that because, obviously I do love The Walking Dead, but I do love a lot of other shows as well, right? I will be posting a Q&A video as well later on today, so stay tuned for that. There's going to be a lot of videos coming out today. The first thing I do want to get into is some of the details regarding what Gimple actually had to say about episodes 5 and 6, which I do also want to say that I'm pretty sure Michael E. Satrazemis, I believe is how you say his name, is the one who directed episode 5. And I'm only saying that because I remember there was an EW interview that was posted at some point in the last, I don't know how long, but they were on set for filming a scene between Rick, Michonne, and Jadis. It was a car chase scene, and he was the director of the episode. And this episode looks like that, is going to happen here. So I think it makes sense that he's probably the director of this one. I don't know if he's the director for the finale, maybe, but as of now, I think that he's probably the director for episode 5 for sure. And the reason why I say that is because he obviously directed a lot of episodes for The Walking Dead, so it's really awesome to actually have him back here. But getting into what Gimple said here, because Gimple actually, he had an interview here with EW, and he was asked about episode 5 and 6, and his response is very, very interesting. So the interviewer asked him, the episode ends with Rick and Michonne driving off together, so what can you say about what happens next? So obviously this is a reference to the end of episode 4, and just what happens next for episodes 5 and 6. And Gimple says, they get home and everything's great. It was very weird to do those last 2 episodes because everything's fine after that. There are no problems. No, I guess I can spoil that. They aren't able to just immediately go off into the sunset. Stuff happens. They have really achieved something in this episode between the two of them, but I don't know if the world is going to let them hold on to it. So obviously stuff is going to happen here, right? It seems like things are going to happen in the next 2 episodes that prevents them from going to Alexandria, because as of now, that is sort of the ending. And this is why, personally for me, I believe there is going to be a season 2. I think it's because when I look at just what this is, it doesn't make a lot of sense for the story anyways to be, right now they're going to Alexandria, and then all of a sudden something happens in episode 5 that causes them to not be able to go, but then in the next episode they end up going anyways. You know what I mean? That's a lot. That's right now they're all happy and everything's good. In episode 4, it ended in a way where it was so positive, where I was like, that just feels like that. I mean, it was good to see. Obviously, a lot of us were happy seeing that, but for stuff to happen again, to cause a bunch of stuff, but then the end result is basically what we just got, I just don't think it makes a lot of sense. Just from like a writer perspective, it doesn't make a lot of sense to do that because it's not as exciting. It doesn't make the finale really thrilling or anything like that. Like it's so, I don't know, like it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me to do that. I just don't think if you're a writer, I don't think you want to do anything like that because it doesn't make a lot of sense to do that. So, you know, I'm not saying that hints at a season 2. I mean, I think it does hint at a season 2, but maybe it doesn't. Maybe their story ends with them not going to Alexandria or the Commonwealth, right? Like maybe it ends in a different way where it's something entirely different. But what I will say is I don't see this story ending with them going back to Alexandria because I just feel like that's kind of a lot for them to do all of that. I don't know. I just think that it would be so rushed. And that's sort of my worry about this is that the reason why I want a season 2 is because I want this story to be told so well. Like we've been waiting for so long for it, you know, and to actually get to a point where like, yes, we have this show, but I don't know, the story is just like I'll say this again. Like I mentioned this before, but I'll mention it now that we've watched 4 episodes. So, you know, a lot of what people say in terms of, you know, if there's going to be a season 2 and whatnot, they focus on the fact that, well, you know, it's 6 episodes. And so that's going to be, you know, 6 hours of film. If they were to do a movie trilogy, that would be 6 hours of film as well. First of all, I don't think it's necessarily the same 6 hours of film. You know, I don't know if the movie would be exactly 2 hours. It'd probably be a little bit less, maybe a little bit more. But again, like you can't tell a story like that. Like you can't take the first 2 episodes of this show and make that, you know, the first movie. That'd be the most boring movie in the world, especially if you look at episode 3 and 4. Take those 2 episodes, you know, when Rick and Michonne arrive at the CRM and they're doing whatever, and they eventually escape. And then in 4, just with whatever happens in that episode and where it ends off, there's no way you can do a movie on that. Like, there's no way. That'd be the most boring movie in the world. Like, you're not going to pay to go sit in the theater and watch that. Like, a movie is so different. And that's sort of what I've always pointed out. And the reason why I say this a lot is because a lot of people disagree with me on this. And they say, well, no, you can easily do that. But I look at it and I'm like, you can't. Like, honestly, it would get really bad reviews. But depending on where the next 2 episodes go, and episode 5 seems to be, I feel like it's going to be Jadis' death episode, and it's really still going to focus on Rick and Michonne at that cabin, and will probably end in a way where maybe they're going back to the CRM. You know, depending on what Major General Beale will say. And again, I did a video earlier today talking about Beale's speech and all of that, and why I think that's probably going to be a really, you know, amazing moment here in the finale. I think all of this, like this, the whole 6 episodes here makes a perfect first movie. And it's because of the arc of the whole thing, right? Like, you look at the first 2 episodes, it was really the introduction to everything. You know, the middle part, episode 3 and 4, was really like they're escaping and all of this, and you're starting to get into all of that. And then 5 and 6, you start to get to like the final parts of the story, right? And sort of how you end, you know, the overall story. And I think it would be perfectly told in a movie. That's how a movie is literally made. It's that exact sort of story. And so to me, yeah, you know, 6 episodes of The Ones Who Live, or these first 6 episodes anyways, are obviously, I think, you know, perfect for a movie. It's so perfect for a movie. And their original plan was a movie trilogy. And I know eventually it started to, you know, the talks were more about a movie. It wasn't really a movie trilogy, but a lot of those talks, it was more like, I think people eventually got to the point where they were like, well, I don't know if we can even do a movie. And we don't know the reasons why they couldn't do a movie. Like, it just changed from like, it doesn't make a lot of sense to do it. And I feel like it's, you know, people watch TV shows more now anyways. And for this story, it makes more sense to focus a lot more of the screen time and everything on, you know, just the story and really developing it a lot better, right? And I think that that's why a TV show works better as a format for a show like The Walking Dead. It works so much better. So I think that's why it ultimately became, you know, what it is right now. And I think it just makes sense to me, you know, to think that instead of 3 movies, it's going to be 3 seasons. Like, there's a lot to tell here. And I just think that it makes a lot of sense to do something like that, because you got to remember, people might say, well, you know, I don't know if Andrew Lincoln wants to do all of that and whatever. Like, when they first said the Rick movie trilogy, Andrew Lincoln was going to do the Rick movie trilogy, right? Obviously, in terms of saying it's going to be a movie trilogy, like, those are very like you have to do the first movie first, see how that does, build up the story and the excitement, and then if it's good, do the second one, right? So it was always going to be that. It was always going to be take it movie by movie and just see if you can get up to 3, right? See if the fan base is there, if the story's that good and whatever. And I think that's what they wanted to do here. And I think that's why with this show, it's sort of the same approach if you think about it. Like, they're not even talking about the possibility of a season 2, because they want you to watch this first and be like, now that you've seen the ending, do you want a season 2 kind of thing, right? Because who knows, like they could have did this show and the ratings were like really bad and not that great, or maybe like, you know what I mean? Like it really, like after The Walking Dead ended, like they might not have known how things were going to go for the spinoffs. And so now that the ratings are just really just insane and like the best that they've had in really years, like literally like the premiere for The Ones Who Live was the best premiere in like 6 years or something like that. I think basically since late season 8, I'm guessing, or it was around there anyways. Like it was at some point in season 8, season 9, or was somewhere around there. So like to me, I look at all of this and I say, I think that's what they're focusing on right now. And again, when you look at Andrew Lincoln's comments regarding a season 2, he did an interview recently, but he was asked the question, like, is this going to be one chapter to the story, or is this like something that would just like be on its own or whatever? I don't remember exactly the way that it was phrased, but my understanding of the question is basically, is this going to be like one chapter of like many seasons, or is this like, this is it sort of thing? And his response was basically, you know, he likes to sort of see it as both. But first, before he said that, he said that's a really good question. And then he went on to say that he sees it as both, that this could stand on its own. And, you sort of have that, like it's on its own, but then there's like a ... afterwards. So I really do just think that it is sort of, it's one of those things where it's like, it's such a hard thing to like not talk about, right? In terms of a season 2 and all of that, because it's like we're at the end now and we're gonna know in the next like week and a half here, right? Like we're going to know what's going to happen, and at that point it's gonna be a lot of like, if they do announce a season 2, we're gonna be like, whoa, whatever. But if they don't announce a season 2, depending on how this ends, there's going to be, I mean, like to me personally, if there's no season 2 and this is it, then I just hope that we see all of the reunions with all the other actors. But I don't see that happening. That's kind of insane just to have all of that, right? I don't see that actually happening. That's kind of crazy to me to actually do all of that. So I don't think that's actually going to happen. In terms of just reuniting it with like Judith and RJ, like say that they just go back to Alexandria, the Commonwealth, and that's it. Like I guess you could do that, but again, just with where everything is at, it just feels like it would be so rushed at this point, and I just don't see it happening. I really don't see it happening. Like, because they have to go back to the CRM, it would be so weird if like they go back there and after they just killed Jadis, in the finale, they kill Major General Beale, they change the CRM and save everyone and go back home. Like, that's so insane to me. Like, that's just crazy. So I personally don't see it happening. I really don't see it happening. And with what Gimple said about episode 5, and I guess episode 6, I think that it just makes a lot of sense that there's going to be some other problems that come up here, right? Like there is going to be a conclusion to the story here, obviously in the season, because there's always a conclusion to every single season, but I do think it's going to continue on to something else for the next story. And it's because I still remember what Gimple said too. Like Gimple said something like, in terms of, if they were to do more or whatever. And he said like, well, it's a band, he would love to do more and all that, but it depends on everyone else. And yeah, I don't know. Personally, to me, I just find it so weird that they're not really confirming that they're not doing a season 2. Like if the ending here was so definitive that it was like the end to everything here, then they would probably say, yeah, it's the end. Like I really just look at it like that. I'm just trying to look at it in terms of, do you want to disappoint your fans or not, right? Like if fans want a season 2 and the expectation is that it's probably going to get a season 2, I feel like you would probably say that, right? Like you would actually probably say, yeah, no, this is going to be the end. Like this is actually the end of their stories. And this way people can watch this knowing it's going to be the end. But I think most people aren't watching it like that. Like most people at this point are watching it like, this is a really epic chapter here of the story. It's really cool to have Rick and Michonne together. And I do think with what they've told so far and what I feel like is going to happen in the next 2 episodes, honestly, in terms of reuniting Rick and Michonne and telling, just focusing these 6 hours of film on those 2 characters and getting them together, it's so perfect. It's honestly everything that I would have dreamed of. Like it's an amazing just part of The Walking Dead that I'm just so grateful to have. I'm so grateful that we actually have this. And again, it's a part, I feel like, of an overall story. It's a chapter to whatever this CRM arc is going to eventually be here. And I don't think this show, I would love for this show to go on for another, 11 seasons like The Walking Dead, but I don't think it's going to be that long. In my head, I feel like it's going to be 3 seasons. Like, I think we'll get a season 2 for sure. And I'm like hoping for a 3rd season because I feel like having 3 seasons, 3 chapters of 6 episodes, I think it would be perfect. I feel like fans would be so happy about that. And it would just be, in terms of the way they tell stories, it would be so epic because, I don't know, it's a good place to leave The Walking Dead. It's a good place. Like whenever I talk about this stuff, I always view it like how would people view all of this stuff 20 or 30 years down the road, right? Like, how are they going to look back on this? And my big fear of The Walking Dead, and that's sort of been my overall fear because I love the show a lot, is I don't want people to look back on this show or whatever and just kind of see like, yeah, Rick left the show for a bit, and then, you know, what happened to The Walking Dead afterwards was what just typically happens to all TV shows, which is your lead actor leaves and then everything just kind of falls apart. You have other leads and then there's other spinoffs and all of that, but everything just kind of falls apart and that's it. Like nothing really matters and that's just sort of the end, right? I like the fact that Gimple has handled everything as well as he's handled it. You know, like you look at those 11 seasons of The Walking Dead, and yes, he left, but there was always like these little hints at where Rick could be. Michonne left and there was all of that, and then we get this show here, and now the other characters are in spinoffs, and if it all ends with like, say each show gets 3 seasons, or maybe Daryl Dixon and Dead City get more, they get more, but just like say The Ones Who Live gets 3 seasons, I would love for it to end in a way where it ends in like some sort of, maybe it's the 3rd season of The Ones Who Live. Maybe that's where it ends. And this way, looking back in 20 years, people are going to be like, wow, that was a really epic story there, right? Like, I look at the Marvel universe and I just think that like, ignore sort of what's happening right now and just focus on what they did, with all the movies leading up to Endgame. It was just so perfect. And you look back on it and you're like, you achieved everything there. It was so perfect. Like just what you did and how you handled that whole story was just amazing. And that's what I want for The Walking Dead, because it is like my favorite franchise. I love these characters so much, and that's what I want for it. But I'll end this video here with answering 3 questions here from you guys. First of all, thank you guys so much for the questions. I still will be doing my Q&A video after this, but these were just extra questions that I wasn't able to get to. So Q&A, if the CRM knows about the Commonwealth, why haven't they tried to take it out? Do they want them to be a part of their alliance? Well, that's the thing about it. Do they know of the Commonwealth? I think that's a really, important aspect to a lot of this. What if that is something that comes up in the finale, right? I don't know how much they do know of each other. Like, I don't even know how much the CRM really knows of everything. Like, it's so hard to say, because when you really look at what they know, I mean, we know that they know of Omaha and Portland, but this show has really focused just on Rick and Michonne. A lot of that CRM stuff, some of it comes out here and there, but it's so hard to see where everything is going. And, I just focus on what they've given us. And yeah, you sort of see obviously Omaha's downfall and all of that, but I don't know, like maybe they do know more. Like obviously they know a lot. Like they clearly do know of a lot of what's happening around, and I'm sure they are aware of the Commonwealth, but like I don't know why they took out Omaha. Like yeah, we did learn why in World Beyond, like they talked about a lot of that, but I just think that that could change in this show. They could change some of that story a little bit. So I want to see what they say. I want to know more about the echelon briefing, and I think that part to it will tell us all we need to know about the CRM and sort of why they're doing what they're doing. Q&A, do you think Rick will regrow his hand back by the end of the season? It's actually, it's really funny because a lot of people I haven't really seen, ever since the scene happened, they've just sort of accepted that, yeah, Rick just doesn't have his hand anymore. Like, when it first happened, a lot of people had a lot of issues with it, and I do understand the issues. I do get it. Like, having, Rick losing his hand so fast and in a way that, a lot of fans see as just being very meaningless because it just happens and he's captured right away anyways. Like, but I do get what Gimple and them were trying to do as well. I do get that. So like, I kind of see both sides to all of it, but honestly for me, it's not really, I don't know, I can just kind of ignore it because I'm more excited about everything else anyways. Q&A, I've seen that you believe that there is no possibility of them ending Rick and Michonne's story because of how it's being promoted, but does it worry you that it could be since Andrew Lincoln was really upset that everyone knew Rick's episode was his last? That means they will probably never promote it as this is the end of their story because Andrew Lincoln loves the shock factor. Yeah, there is definitely that aspect to it, but that sort of goes both ways as well. Like if there's going to be a season 2, he wants people to also see that as well. So for me, I don't know. I guess that could be the case as well, but for me, I don't really look at it like that. I don't know, because I also view it like the way AMC promoted his final episodes was just perfect, because promoting it like that, it gave fans, the chance to be able to like accept that, right? Like it was just something that I think worked out really, really well for AMC because everyone knew, okay, this is actually the end of Rick's story. And so everyone was just sort of prepared for that moment. And I think it just took weeks and weeks, or I guess months and months, right? of fans just preparing for that and sort of accepting the fact that the story going forward would be without Rick Grimes. So that worked out really well in my opinion. And I think, you know, if it was going to be the end anyways, like that's sort of how you want to do it, right? If you're going to be doing like this whole epic endgame chapter sort of thing, or like this big conclusion to everything, you want to build up that moment like it is the end game, like it actually is the ending, like this is the big ending to everything, all this hype going into that very last moment, and then, you know, whatever happens there. Like, yes, you don't want to ruin that ending, obviously, right? You don't want to, but like that's sort of what you want to do. That makes the whole experience so fun. So I don't know, for me, I don't really look at it like that, honestly. I think that if anything, he's probably more, you know, he just doesn't want there to be talk of a season 2 before the ending has come out. Like, I think he just wants everyone to watch everything and then be like, okay, now we can talk about something happening afterwards, kind of thing, right? So for now, just focus on these 6 episodes. And so that's just kind of, that's how I view everything anyways. But I'll leave it here. Definitely post your thoughts down below. Hope you guys all enjoyed this video, and yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one.